Rain streaked across Seattle's skyline, blurring the city's neon glow as Aiden Crow navigated the slick streets toward home. At 42, he was a man who'd built his life with precision, an architect whose designs shaped the city's future, a father to Lily, 10, and Noah, 7, and a husband to Emma, 39, whose radiant charm still turned heads at gallery openings. Their Capitol Hill home, with its warm lights and ivy-draped facade, was a haven, or so he'd thought. Lately, a shadow had crept into their marriage, subtle but persistent, like a crack in a foundation he couldn't yet see. Aiden gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale against the leather. Emma had been distant for months. Her laughter, once a melody that filled their evenings, now felt rehearsed. She'd always been a dreamer, a curator whose passion for art lit up her hazel eyes. But recently, those eyes avoided his, darting to her phone with a guarded flick. Late meetings, she'd say, or a new exhibit prep. Aiden wanted to believe her. He needed to. They'd been married 12 years, surely trust was their bedrock. Yet, as he pulled into their driveway, the silence of the house greeted him like a warning. Inside, the kids were asleep, their toys scattered across the living room like relics of a simpler time. Emma wasn't home. Again. Aiden checked his phone, no texts, no missed calls. He poured a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the dim light, and sank into the couch. Memories flickered. Emma's smile at their wedding, her hand in his as they watched Lily take her first steps. But those images clashed with newer ones, her hurried goodbyes, her vague excuses, the way she'd linger at the mirror before leaving, as if dressing for someone else. He wasn't a suspicious man by nature. Aiden built things, bridges, towers, futures. He solved problems with logic, not paranoia. But tonight, logic failed him. The bourbon burned his throat as he replayed the past few weeks. Emma's sudden interest in late-night networking events. The way she'd hush her phone when he entered the room. The perfume she wore now, sharper than the soft florals he'd bought her for their anniversary. Each detail was a pinprick, too small to accuse but too sharp to ignore. Aiden stood, pacing the hardwood floor. He wasn't ready to confront her, not without proof. Accusing Emma without evidence would shatter the trust they'd spent years building, and he couldn't risk that. Not yet. But he couldn't ignore the ache in his chest either, the instinct that whispered something was wrong. He glanced at a framed photo on the mantel, the four of them at Pike Place Market, laughing as Noah smeared ice cream on Lily's nose. That day felt like a lifetime ago. His phone buzzed, snapping him back. A text from Emma, running late at the gallery. Don't wait up. The words were familiar, but they landed like a stranger's. Aiden stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He typed, "Okay, love you," but deleted it. Instead, he set the phone down and headed upstairs, the weight of doubt heavier than ever. In their bedroom, he paused by Emma's vanity. Her jewelry box sat open, a tangle of necklaces glinting under the lamp. Among them was a new bracelet, sleek, expensive, nothing like the bohemian trinket she usually wore. Aiden's pulse quickened. He'd never seen it before. Had he missed an occasion? Or had someone else noticed her in a way he hadn't? He closed the box, his reflection in the mirror a man he barely recognized, tired eyes, clenched jaw, a stranger wearing his face. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Aiden lay in the dark, listening to the rain's relentless drum. He thought of his kids, their innocent trust in the world he'd promised to protect. Whatever was happening with Emma, he couldn't let it fracture their universe. But the truth was a splinter under his skin, and he knew he'd have to dig it out, no matter how much it hurt. As dawn broke, gray and unforgiving, Aiden made a decision. He wouldn't confront Emma yet. He'd watch, wait, and gather the pieces of this puzzle. If there was a betrayal and God, he hoped there wasn't, he'd face it with the same precision he brought to his blueprints. But deep down, a part of him already feared the design was flawed, and the life he'd built was teetering on collapse. Aiden's office overlooked Seattle's waterfront, where ferries cut through the mist like ghosts. The blueprints on his desk, a sleek museum set to redefine the city's skyline, should have held his focus, but his mind was elsewhere. Emma's text from last night echoed, "Don't wait up." She'd slipped in after midnight, her heels clicking softly as she tiptoed to bed, thinking he was asleep. He wasn't. The scent of that unfamiliar perfume clung to her, sharp and invasive, like a stranger in their home. By noon, Aiden couldn't shake the unease. He canceled a client meeting, citing a headache, and drove aimlessly through the city. Rain smeared the windshield, blurring the world into grays. He didn't know what he was looking for until he saw it. Emma's car, parked outside a trendy Belltown cafe. His stomach twisted. She hadn't mentioned any plans, only that she'd be at the gallery all day. He pulled over across the street, his breath shallow, and watched. Through the cafe's fogged window, Emma sat at a corner table, her auburn hair catching the light. Across from her was a man, tall, polished, with a smile that seemed too practiced. They leaned close, her hand brushing his as she laughed. Aiden's chest tightened, a dull ache spreading like ink. He didn't know the man, but the way Emma looked at him, eyes bright, unguarded, told a story Aiden wasn't ready to read. He gripped the steering wheel, torn between storming in and driving away. Instead, he stayed, rooted by a need to understand. The man, maybe late 30s, wore a tailored jacket and gestured with easy confidence. Emma hung on his words, her smile unguarded in a way Aiden hadn't seen in years. When she touched the man's arm, lingering just a second too long, Aiden's doubt hardened into certainty. This wasn't a colleague or a client. This was something else. He snapped a photo with his phone, the image blurry but damning. The man's face was clear enough, sharp jaw, dark hair, a glint of charm that felt calculated. Aiden's hands shook as he saved it. He wasn't sure what he'd do with it, but it was proof, a shard of truth he could hold on to. As Emma and the man stood to leave, Aiden ducked low in his seat, heart pounding. They stepped onto the sidewalk, sharing an umbrella, their shoulders brushing as they disappeared into the rain. Back at his office, Aiden couldn't focus. The photo burned a hole in his phone, tempting him to call Emma and demand answers. But he'd seen enough courtroom dramas to know accusations without evidence could backfire. If he was wrong, and part of him still prayed he'd risk everything. If he was right, he needed more than a grainy snapshot to confront the woman he'd sworn to love forever. That evening, he hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Marla with a no-nonsense voice. "Give me a week," she said over coffee at a diner. "If there's something to find, I'll find it." Aiden slid her the photo and a check, his jaw tight. "I need to know who he is," he said. Marla nodded, her eyes sharp. "Careful what you wish for, Mr. Crow. Truth's a heavy thing." At home, Emma was her usual self, chatty with the kids, distant with him. She rambled about a new artist at the gallery, her words a polished shield. Aiden played along, nodding as Noah showed off a drawing of a dinosaur. But his eyes kept drifting to her wrist, where that sleek bracelet glinted. "New jewelry?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Emma froze for a split second, and smiled. "A gift from a client. Nothing special." Her lie was smooth, but Aiden caught the flicker in her gaze. That night, as Emma slept, Aiden scrolled through her public social media, nothing unusual, just gallery posts and artsy quotes. But a nagging instinct pushed him further. He checked her email sync on their shared tablet, guilt prickling his skin. Most messages were work-related, but one caught his eye, a confirmation for a dinner reservation at Starlight, a swanky downtown restaurant, for two. The date was tomorrow. Emma hadn't mentioned it. Aiden's pulse raced. Was it for her and the man from the cafe? Or was he spiraling, seeing betrayal where there was none? He closed the tablet, his reflection ghostly in the screen. The man he saw wasn't the steady architect who'd built a life with Emma. He was someone new, wounded, restless, and dangerously close to a truth he wasn't sure he could face. As he climbed into bed, Emma stirred, murmuring something soft. For a moment, he wanted to pull her close, to forget the cafe, the bracelet, the reservation. But the ache in his chest wouldn't let him. Tomorrow, he'd follow the thread, wherever it led. If Emma was hiding something, he'd uncover it, not with anger, but with the cold precision of a man who'd spent his life building things that didn't break. Aiden woke to the gray light of another Seattle morning, the rain a steady hum against the windows. His sleep had been fractured, haunted by the image of Emma laughing with that stranger in the cafe. The dinner reservation at Starlight loomed in his mind like a ticking clock. He dressed quietly, avoiding Emma's side of the bed where she still slept, her face serene in a way that felt like a betrayal of its own. Downstairs, he made breakfast for Lily and Noah, forcing a smile as they bickered over syrup. Normalcy was a mask he wore for them. At his office, Aiden tried to lose himself in blueprints, but the lines blurred into meaningless shapes. Marla, the investigator, hadn't called yet, and the wait gnawed at him. By noon, he gave up and drove to the gallery where Emma worked, a chic space in Pioneer Square filled with abstract sculptures and bold canvases. He didn't plan to confront her, just to see her, to gauge if the woman he loved was still there. Through the glass, he spotted her arranging a display, her movements graceful but distracted. She checked her phone, smiled faintly, then tucked it away. Aiden's grip tightened on the door handle, but he turned back to his car. Not yet. That evening, Emma left the house in a hurry, claiming a last-minute meeting. Aiden didn't challenge her, though the lie hung heavy between them. Instead, he kissed the kids goodnight and waited until the babysitter arrived. Then he drove to Starlight, its golden lights cutting through the drizzle. The restaurant was a haven for Seattle's elite. Dark wood, soft jazz, the clink of wine glasses. Aiden parked across the street, his heart a drumbeat in his chest. If Emma was here with him, he'd know. Minutes later, her car pulled up. She stepped out, stunning in a sapphire dress Aiden didn't recognize, her hair swept up to show the bracelet glinting on her wrist. And there he was, the man from the cafe, striding toward her with a grin. He was sharper in person, his tailored coat screaming money, his hand grazing Emma's back as they entered. Aiden's breath hitched. He wanted to storm in, to shatter their illusion, but Marla's words echoed. Truth's a heavy thing. He needed more. Inside, through the restaurant's tall windows, Aiden watched them settle at a corner table. Emma's laughter carried faintly, each note a dagger. The man, Logan, Aiden decided to call him until he knew more, leaned close, his charm effortless. Aiden's phone buzzed. A text from Marla. Got something. Meet me tomorrow, 8 a.m. He typed a quick reply, his eyes never leaving the window. Whatever Marla had, it couldn't come soon enough. Back home, Aiden paced, the kids' laughter from earlier now a distant memory. When Emma returned, past 11, she smelled of wine and that damn perfume. Good meeting? He asked, his voice neutral. She nodded, too quickly. Exhausting, but productive. New donor. Her eyes didn't meet his. Aiden let it slide, but the bracelet on her wrist seemed to mock him. He wondered if Logan had given it to her, a trophy for her betrayal. The next morning, Marla met him at a dive bar near the waterfront, its neon sign flickering. She slid a folder across the table, her face grim. Your guy's name is Logan Reed. Not a donor, not an artist. A con man. Aiden flipped through the pages, photos, bank records, aliases. Logan had a history. Charming women, draining their accounts, vanishing. Emma wasn't his first mark. She's been wiring him money, Marla said. Thousands. Thinks it's for some tech startup. Aiden's blood ran cold. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was calculated. Logan wasn't in love with Emma, he was playing her, and she was too dazzled to see it. He scanned a bank statement. $30,000 transferred over 2 months, money meant for their kid's future. Rage simmered, but Aiden tamped it down. Anything else? He asked. Marla hesitated. Yeah, he's planning a trip. One-way ticket to Lisbon, next week. Alone. The words hit like a punch. Logan was going to fleece Emma and disappear, leaving her broken and broke. Aiden thanked Marla and left, the folder heavy in his hand. He drove to a park overlooking Puget Sound, the water churning under a bruised sky. Part of him wanted to confront Emma now, to shake her awake from this delusion. But another part, a colder, sharper part, wanted her to feel the weight of her choices. Logan was the predator, but Emma had opened the door. By afternoon, Aiden met with his lawyer, a steely woman named Claire who'd handled high-profile divorces. If you're sure, she said, reviewing the evidence, we can draft papers now. But think hard, Aiden. This ends everything. He nodded, his jaw tight. Divorce wasn't just an exit, it was a blade, clean and final. He'd use it, but not yet. First, he'd unravel Logan's game, expose him in a way that left no room for denial. As dusk fell, Aiden sat in his car outside the gallery, watching Emma lock up. She looked tired, vulnerable, not the woman who'd laughed with Logan. For a moment, he saw the Emma he'd fallen for, the one who'd danced with him in the rain, who'd sketched their future on napkins. But that Emma was gone, replaced by someone who'd gambled their life for a lie. Aiden started the engine, his plan taking shape. Starlight would see them again, and when it did, he'd be ready. Aiden spent the next few days in a haze of precision, each move calculated like lines on a blueprint. Marla's folder lay open on his desk at home, its contents a map of betrayal, Logan's fake IDs, Emma's bank transfers, even a leased condo in Queen and where Logan met her in secret. The evidence was ironclad, but it wasn't enough to just know. Aiden wanted Emma to see, to feel the ground collapse under her the way it had for him. He wasn't after violence or chaos. His revenge would be surgical, a truth so sharp it would cut through her illusions. Emma, oblivious, floated through their routine. She cooked pancakes for Lily and Noah, her laughter bright as she dodged their syrupy fingers. Aiden watched, torn between love and contempt. How could she play the devoted mom while wiring their savings to a fraud? At night, she'd curl up with a book, the bracelet, Logan's gift. Aiden was sure catching the lamplight. He said nothing, his silence a shield as he planned. Claire, his lawyer, had the divorce papers ready, locked in a drawer. Starlight was booked again for Friday, Logan's name on the reservation. That was a stage. Thursday night, Aiden couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, Seattle's skyline a blur beyond the window. The folder's latest edition was a bombshell. Logan had conned another woman in Portland 2 years ago, leaving her bankrupt. Her story mirrored Emma's: lavish dinners, promises of a shared future, then nothing but debt. Aiden's anger wasn't just for himself anymore. It was for every life Logan had shattered, for the arrogance of a man who thought he'd never fall. But Emma wasn't blameless. She'd chosen this path, blind to the cliff ahead. Friday arrived, damp and restless. Aiden kissed the kids goodbye as they left for school, their backpacks bouncing. Emma was already at the gallery, or so she said. He spent the day finalizing details. Claire emailed the papers. Marla sent a grainy photo of Logan at a bank, withdrawing Emma's latest transfer. Aiden's plan was simple: confront them at Starlight, lay the truth bare, and walk away. No shouting, no fists. Just facts, cold and undeniable, to strip Logan's mask and force Emma to face her betrayal. At dusk, Aiden dressed in a dark suit, his reflection in the mirror a man forged in resolve. The rain had stopped, leaving the city slick and gleaming. Starlight buzzed when he arrived, its warmth a stark contrast to the ice in his veins. He spotted them immediately, Emma in that sapphire dress, Logan leaning close, his smile a predator's. Aiden paused at the bar, ordering a whiskey to steady his hands. The folder was in his briefcase, the divorce papers tucked inside. He'd rehearsed his words, but seeing them together, so carefree, made his throat tighten. He approached their table, steps measured, the din of the restaurant fading to a hum. Emma's laughter stopped when she saw him, her eyes widening like a deer caught in headlights. Logan's grin faltered, his hand freezing mid-gesture. Aiden? Emma's voice was a whisper, tinged with panic. He set the briefcase down, his face a mask of calm. Evening, he said, voice low. Mind if I join you? Logan recovered first, his charm snapping back like a switch. Didn't know we were expecting company, he said, leaning back with forced ease. Emma's hands trembled, clutching her wine glass. Aiden pulled out a chair, sitting without breaking eye contact. I won't stay long, he said, sliding the folder across the table. But you'll want to see this. Emma stared at the folder, her breath hitching. What's this? She asked, though her tone said she already feared the answer. Logan's eyes narrowed, but he stayed silent, his fingers tapping the table. Aiden opened the folder, revealing Logan's photo, real name, David Kane, stamped across a rap sheet. Meet your future, Emma, Aiden said, voice steady. A con man who's been bleeding you dry. The color drained from Emma's face. She shook her head, a weak denial. No, that's not. Logan cut in, his voice sharp. This is nonsense. Who the hell are you to throw around lies? But Aiden was ready. He spread out bank records, each transfer circled in red. $30,000, Emma. For his startup. Did he tell you about Portland? Or the woman before you? Emma's gaze darted to Logan, searching for a defense. He stammered, his charm crumbling. It's not what you think, Em. He's twisting it. But she was already flipping through the pages, aliases, police reports, a one-way ticket to Lisbon. Her hands shook, tears welling. Aiden leaned forward, his voice softer now, almost pitying. He was leaving you, Emma. Next week. With your money. Logan stood abruptly, chair scraping. I don't have to sit here for this. He grabbed his coat, but Aiden's next words stopped him cold. Run if you want, David. The police already have this. You're done. Logan's face twisted, a flash of fear breaking through. He bolted for the door, leaving Emma alone, her world unraveling. Aiden pushed the divorce papers toward her. Read these when you're ready, he said, standing. Emma's sobs were quiet, her hands covering her face. He wanted to feel triumph, but there was only a hollow ache. You broke us, he said, voice barely above a whisper. But you don't get to break our kids. He walked out, the restaurant's glow fading behind him, leaving Emma to drown in the wreckage of her choices. Aiden stepped into the Seattle night, the air cool and heavy with the scent of rain-soaked pavement. Starlight's golden glow faded behind him, but the weight of what he'd done lingered, a stone in his chest. He'd pictured this moment for days, exposing Logan, shattering Emma's illusions, but there was no victory in her tears, no relief in the divorce papers left on the table. Only a raw, aching void where their life used to be. He drove home in silence, the city's lights blurring past, his hands steady, but his mind a storm. At the house, the babysitter greeted him with a sleepy nod. Lily and Noah were tucked in, their soft breaths a reminder of what he still had to protect. Aiden sat by Noah's bed, watching his son's chest rise and fall, a dinosaur plush clutched tight. He thought of Emma's face in the restaurant as shock, then despair, as Logan's lies collapsed. Part of him wanted to hate her, to let anger burn away the love he'd carried for 12 years. But hate was too simple. She'd betrayed him, yes, but she'd also been deceived, her dreams twisted by a man who saw her as prey. Sleep eluded him again. He poured a coffee and opened his laptop, Marla's final report waiting in his inbox. Logan, David Kane, hadn't just conned Emma. He'd been dodging creditors, his fake startup a shell for laundering cash. Marla had tipped off the authorities, and a warrant was in motion. Aiden felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it was fleeting. Logan's fall wouldn't undo the nights Aiden had lain awake, doubting himself, wondering where he'd failed Emma. By morning, the house felt too quiet. The kids sensed something was off, their usual chatter subdued over cereal. "Where's Mom?" Lily asked, her eyes searching. Aiden forced a smile. "She's got some work stuff, kiddo. She'll be around soon." The lie tasted bitter, but he couldn't burden them yet. He dropped them at school, their waves from the gate a small anchor in the chaos. Back home, he called Claire, his lawyer. "File the papers," he said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "You're sure?" Aiden exhaled. "Yeah. Emma didn't come home that night. She texted instead. Need time. Staying at a friend's." "I'm sorry." Aiden stared at the words, his thumb hovering over a reply. He wanted to ask if she was sorry for Logan, for the money, for them. But he didn't. Instead, he tucked the phone away and focused on the kids, homework, dinner, a bedtime story about pirates. Normalcy was a fragile thread, but he clung to it for their sake. Days blurred into a week. Marla called with news. Logan was arrested in Tacoma, caught trying to pawn a watch he bought with Emma's money. The story hit local news, Seattle con man nabbed in sting, and Aiden watched the report alone, the anchor's voice a dull hum. Logan's mugshot stared back, smug even in defeat. Justice, maybe, but it didn't fill the hole in Aiden's life. He wondered where Emma was, if she'd seen the headlines, if she was drowning in regret or just hiding from it. Then, a knock at the door. Emma stood on the porch, her coat damp, eyes red-rimmed. She looked smaller, stripped of the confidence that once defined her. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Aiden stepped aside, letting her in. The living room felt like a battlefield, every photo and trinket a reminder of what they'd lost. She sat on the couch, hands twisting in her lap. "I didn't know," she started. "About him. I thought." "You thought he was your future," Aiden cut in, his tone flat. "You thought he was worth throwing us away." Emma flinched, tears spilling. "I was lost, Aiden. The gallery, the routine, it was suffocating. He made me feel alive." The word stung, but Aiden didn't look away. "And what about me? The kids? Were we just dead weight?" She shook her head, sobbing. "No. I love you. I love them. I messed up." Aiden wanted to believe her, to see the woman who'd built this life with him. But trust was a bridge she'd burned, and he wasn't sure it could be rebuilt. "I saw the papers," she said, voice breaking. "Is that it? We're done." Aiden leaned against the wall, exhausted. "You tell me, Emma. You chose him over us. What's left?" Silence stretched, heavy and jagged. Emma wiped her eyes, reaching for words that wouldn't come. "I'm going to therapy," she said finally. "I need to fix myself. For the kids, at least." Aiden nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He didn't hate her, not fully. She was broken, like him, but her mistakes were hers to carry. "They need you," he said. "But I don't know if I can." Emma left quietly, her footsteps fading into the rain. Aiden stood alone, the house too big without her. He thought of Lily's drawings, Noah's dinosaur, the life they'd still share as parents, if nothing else. Logan was gone. Emma was humbled, but the scars remained. Aiden poured another coffee, the bitterness grounding him. He'd rebuild, slowly, for the kids, for himself. But first, he'd have to learn to live with the quiet, and the truth that some fractures never fully heal.